What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Dana White teases huge news for early 25. For years, Dana White has been talking about diving heavily into the boxing game, but typically the comments have died down and nothing big has really happened. And before we continue, make sure to leave a like on the video to help support the channel. Well, based on recent interviews that White did, it sounds like he and the UFC's parent company, TKO Group Holdings, are finally ready to take the plunge into the sweet science. If you've followed White over the years, you know that he's a huge boxing fan and used to train in boxing. You also know that he's been a relentless critic of boxing's business model, and as noted, he's repeatedly talked about putting on boxing events. While some folks may be tired of hearing White talk about it, it's clear a lot of people aren't, and the UFC CEO continues to field questions about it. Case in point, while talking with the Sports Business Journal recently, White reported he could have some big news about boxing in a couple of months. Yes, so you know it's no secret that I'm in talks with boxing right now. Hopefully if this happens, we'd have a deal done and announced in January or February. But yeah, I'm interested obviously. Boxing is so messed up. It took Saudi money to make some of these fights that people wanted to see and to, sort of get the sport moving again. I don't know, but yes, I think you knock the whole thing down and rebuild it from the ground up, just like we did with the UFC. So it'll be really interesting to see what all this entails. And if the long discussed Zuffa boxing promotion kicks off, it'll also be fascinating to see how the promotion compensates boxers in comparison to how the UFC distributes revenue to its fighters. Dana White also reported that TKO will continue to invest in grappling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is likely exciting news for grappling fans. But what do you think? Will we finally see Zuffa boxing or something like it operating in 2025? Petr Yan calls out Merab and Merab accepts. After Petr Yan reminded the MMA world today that he very much remains one of the best bantamweights in the world, the former champ called for another title shot. Yan faced former flyweight champ and surging bantamweight Deiveson Figueiredo at UFC Macau and won the thrilling fight by unanimous decision. The victory was Yan's second in a row, following his losses to Aljamain Sterling, Sean O'Malley, and the current champ Merab Dvalishvili. Well, speaking of the champ, Yan has made it clear he wants to run it back with Merab. When asked about fighting O'Malley or Corey Sandhagen next during the post-fight presser, Yan said this: "I already beat both Sean O'Malley and Corey Sandhagen. I already beat them before." Technically, Yan lost to O'Malley by split decision, but the Russian star clearly doesn't see it that way. In addition, Yan also had this call out for Merab.
Merab, let's do it again. I'm ready to talk about the rematch, and I believe it's going to be a very exciting fight.
Now, there's no question that Yan looks super impressive at UFC Macau. Case in point, the welterweight champion, Belal Muhammad, posted this: "Yan making it look easy." But is Merab interested in running it back with Yan? It certainly looks that way. Here's some of what the current bantamweight king posted via social media. "What a great fight. I'm impressed Petr Yan UFC performance tonight." And finally, Dvalishvili is pushing for a fight with Yan to go down in Macau on March 8th at UFC 313.
No one can take this belt from me and steal it.
To which Yan responded with this: "Let's do it again. I promise fans won't be disappointed." And in terms of his own performance at UFC Macau, Yan posted this: "I think it wasn't bad for 8 months layoff and knee surgery. Thanks to everyone who supported me." So could we see Dvalishvili Yan 2 next? It seems kind of unlikely. Plenty of signs point to Umar Nurmagomedov fighting Merab next, provided that the UFC can work out the timing. Umar will not fight during Ramadan, which extends throughout almost all of March. Further, Yan lost pretty decisively to Merab, as the champion took him down 11 times and won all 5 rounds. So you would think the UFC might not want to run that back just yet, right? All that aside, Umar was quick to fire back at Merab after he welcomed the fight with Yan. Merab also posted this comment while once again targeting March 8th for a scrap with Yan. "Great fight, Petr. I like your call out and I like your respect. Let's go again after 2 years. March 8th, T-Mobile. Let's go." And here was Nurmagomedov's response: "I were him, I wouldn't want to fight me either. He's right to be afraid." So who could be next for Yan? Assuming the UFC does book Dvalishvili versus Nurmagomedov, Chito Vera has a proposal. "Great fight, Petr Yan. I want you next." On paper, there's a lot to like with Yan versus Vera, no question. But since Chito has lost 2 in a row, Yan's camp may not be interested in taking that fight. Further, Vera is ranked number 6, and heading into this weekend's action, Yan was number 3. But who do you want to see Yan fight next? Up next, Renato Moicano roasts Michael Chandler. Not only did Michael Chandler add another loss to his record at UFC 309, it looks like Renato Moicano believes Iron Mike would come up short against many of the UFC's top lightweights. Chandler faced Charles Oliveira at the recent UFC 309 event and lost a memorable fight via unanimous decision. It marked the second time Do Bronx had beaten Chandler, as he stopped the former Bellator champion back in 2021. Well, during a recent episode of the Show Me the Money podcast, Moicano was asked to weigh in on several theoretical matchups between Chandler and other top 15 ranked ranked lightweights. As you'll see, Moicano didn't like Chandler's chances in any of them.
Michael Chandler versus Benoit Saint Denis.
Michael Chandler loses.
Okay, loses. Okay, all right, let's keep going. Bobby Green or Michael Chandler?
Bobby Green.
Grant Dawson or Chandler?
Grant Dawson for sure.
Jalen Turner or Chandler?
Jalen Turner, 100%.
Paddy Pimblett or Chandler?
Maybe I'm hating Paddy Pimblett.
Benil Dariush or Chandler?
Benil Dariush.
Fazeev or Chandler?
Fazeev for sure.
Dan Hooker or Chandler?
Dan Hooker.
Do you agree with Renato's picks? It's worth noting that Chandler did beat Dan Hooker when they fought back in 2021. But do you see a rematch unfolding differently, just as Renato does? Win or lose, who do you want to see Chandler fight next? Dustin Poirier provides update on last fight. As we near the end of 2025, the MMA world is still waiting to find out who Dustin Poirier is fighting next. Well, it sounds like the Diamond was close to having a bout booked, but it fell through. Following Poirier's submission loss to lightweight champ Islam Makhachev in June, the legend acknowledged that he might hang up the gloves. That announcement, however, never came, and since then, Poirier has said that he wants to fight one more time. There's been a lot of talk about the possibility of Poirier fighting Justin Gaethje in a rubber match, him and Nate Diaz finally throwing hands, or even another bout with Conor McGregor. But recently, the Diamond told a fan the following when asked about his next fight: "Thought I had one, but still working on the finale." Poirier was also asked if a scrap with Rafael Fazeev was the matchup that nearly had been finalized, and the star responded with this: "Fake news." So the waiting game continues. Who do you think Poirier will fight in what will likely be his last scrap? And who do you want the former interim lightweight champion to face? UFC fight updates. Okay, let's take a look at some of the more recent fights that have been added to the UFC's upcoming schedule. Recently, In the Cage PI reported that Taliesin Teixeira has withdrawn from a December 7th bout with Łukasz Brzezinski, and that Kennedy Nzechukwu is stepping in. Nzechukwu is coming off a TKO victory over Chris Barnett just last month, in what was Kennedy's return to the heavyweight division. The former light heavyweight made the decision to move up to 205 following consecutive losses to Dustin Jacoby and Ovince St. Preux. Brzezinski, meanwhile, is looking to get back on track as he was stopped by Mick Parkin this past July. Given that the Polish fighter is 1-4 in the UFC so far, he's almost certainly in the must-win situation. 4 Ounces to Freedom is reporting that Dana White Contender Series winner Jose Delgado will make his official UFC debut against Connor Matthews. The featherweights have agreed to fight at the UFC's February 15th Fight Night card in Las Vegas. Delgado is riding a 5-fight winning streak, which includes his stoppage win over Ernie Juarez at a Dana White's Contender Series card in August. Matthews, who also made his way to the UFC via the Contender Series, is coming off a stoppage loss to Denis Buzukja in March. That bout was Matthews' official UFC debut. And Marcel Dorf is reporting that Lucas Almeida will throw hands with fellow featherweight Danny Silva at the UFC's March 1st Fight Night card in Vegas. Almeida recorded a unanimous decision victory over Timmy Kuamba in June, which snapped a 2-fight losing skid. Silva, meanwhile, has not competed since February, when he notched a split decision win over Josh Kulibau. That fight was Silva's UFC debut after being tapped for a UFC contract with a victory in Dana White's Contender Series in September 2023. Jiri Prochazka versus Jamahal Hill at UFC 311. Recently, Jiri Prochazka reported that his next fight has been signed, and the MMA world was waiting to hear who it's against. Well, if you predicted it'll be against Jamahal Hill, it looks like you were right. During a recent UFC broadcast, Dan Hellie reported that Prochazka is going to battle Hill in January. Further, Prochazka himself has announced that he and his fellow former light heavyweight champ are going to fight on January 18th. Prochazka did so in pretty cool and memorable fashion. So this news likely won't surprise anyone, as recently there had been a fair amount of talk about Prochazka possibly fighting Hill next. For one, it makes a lot of sense. Stylistically, it has the makings of a can't-miss fight. You could really say that anytime Jiri fights. Rankings-wise, it makes sense, as Jiri is ranked number 2 in the light heavyweight division, while Hill is number 3. Finally, both men are coming off stoppage losses to the current king at 205, Alex Pereira. Hill was taken out by Poatan in April, and Prochazka fell to the feared striker for a second time this past June. Are you excited to see these two get after it? And who are you picking to win? MMA community reacts to Kai Asakura's shocking body transformation. A lot of casual or UFC only fans are getting up to speed on who Kai Asakura is, but recently the MMA community had plenty to say about the former Rizin champ's physique ahead of his scrap with Alexandre Pantoja. Asakura has been tapped to fight the flyweight champ at the December 7th UFC 310 card. The bout will mark the first time the Japanese star has fought under the UFC banner. Since Asakura has been fighting at bantamweight in recent years, some have wondered how his cut to 125 pounds will go and how he'll look. Well, as you can see, just a couple of weeks out from UFC 310, Asakura is looking ridiculously shredded. So here were some of the reactions the video prompted online. Those elbows and knees he's about to throw are going to be ruthless. These Japanese fighters are something else. But not everyone saw how Asakura looked as a positive. Juiced up. Dude too busy checking himself out instead of training. Good luck to him though. I don't know, bro. Looks good, but Pantoja going to introduce him to some UFC grappling. Muscles don't win fights. This is going to be his last sip of water for like 2 weeks, lol. And this fan acknowledged that if Asakura wins, it'll rock the MMA world. He's either going to knock out Pantoja or get backpacked. Asakura winning would be insane for his debut. It's going to be fascinating to see if Asakura can take the flyweight crown back to Japan. It would be a historic accomplishment if he does. Asakura's fellow countryman and former opponent Kyoji Horiguchi came up short in his bid to do so back in 2015 against the legendary Demetrius Johnson. But what's your take on how Asakura is looking this close to the fight? And has it changed your prediction for how the fight could go? Joe Rogan declines Ariel Helwani on podcast due to his relationship with Dana White. On his recent episode of the Ariel Helwani show, Ariel opened up on why he hasn't been invited on the Joe Rogan Experience. He blames his beef with Dana White as the reason why he won't be on Rogan's show. Here's what Ariel had to say.
TJ, hey Ariel, what's the beef with Joe Rogan? You kept saying you would never be invited onto his show, facts, but Joe Rogan has said that he likes you and thinks you're a great interview. Throughout his entire, or our time knowing each other, has always been kind and complimentary, but given his relationship with Dana, he's not gonna have me on. And I get that, I don't need to be on. It's the biggest part. I routinely say what he has built is so impressive and admirable, but I just know it. The one issue that I've had with him, which I've talked 1,000 times, is I did not appreciate the Monday after UFC 199 for the 1 millionth time that he told a version of the story that was 1,000% fabricated and that was potentially damaging to my reputation. He said a bunch of stuff happened, which never happened, not even close to happening. It was just their version of the story that they wanted out there to make me seem like I did something wrong, which I had not. I'm just saying that I don't think he would have me on because of the relationship, and that is totally fine.